if Megumi Fushiguro was in Demon Slayer? Now let's just get right into this. Season 1 basically plays out the same, because Tanjiro still leaves to sell coal, comes back, finds his whole family dead, grabs Nezuko who's turned into a demon, fights Giyu, and gets told to go train with Urokodaki, the former water Hashira. He trains, passes final selection, kills the hand demon, and goes on his journey defeating demons like the swamp demon and the drum demon. He meets Zenitsu and Inosuke, and eventually they arrive at Mount Natagumo. And this is where I like introducing my new character. Now we need to figure out what version of Megumi we're using. In the Jujutsu Kaisen series, Megumi doesn't really reach his full potential most of the time, because every time he summons Mahoraga, he's basically sacrificing himself, and usually someone like Sukuna ends up saving him. But in this timeline, we're using full potential Megumi, similar to the idea from my "What if Megumi had his full potential from the start" video. That means he has reverse curse technique for himself, though he can't heal other people since only very rare sorcerers like Yuta can do that, and even someone like Gojo can't normally use it on others. Megumi also has full control over the Ten Shadows technique, including Mahoraga, and he can summon it whenever he wants without dying. So that's the version of Megumi we're using. This timeline is also different from my others, because characters like Gojo, Sukuna, or Sasuke would be Hashira level monsters from the start, while Megumi is still relatively unknown, and is basically under the radar of the Ubuyashiki family, just like Tanjiro was early in the story. So Megumi ends up responding to the Mount Natagumo mission as well, and he meets Tanjiro, Inosuke, Zenitsu, and Nezuko at the base of the mountain. At first, Megumi questions Nezuko because she's a demon, but Tanjiro explains the situation, and Megumi eventually accepts it. Tanjiro, Inosuke, and Megumi run up the mountain together, while Zenitsu stays behind, like in the original timeline, since he's scared, and later fights the spider demon in the trees and gets poisoned. Everything with Zenitsu happens the same as in the original story, but Megumi goes up the mountain with Tanjiro and Inosuke, and helps the other demon slayers along the way. Megumi is calm, analytical, and collected, so the breathing style that fits him best would probably be mist breathing. Mist breathing wasn't created by Muichiro himself, so it's possible Megumi learned it because it matches his fighting style. As they climb the mountain, they eventually reach the mother spider demon fight. After Tanjiro and Inosuke defeat her, they encounter the father spider demon. Megumi uses his divine dogs and other shadows to help control the battlefield, but the demon is far beyond them. Tanjiro and Inosuke can barely damage it, and even when its head gets cut off, it doesn't die. So Megumi decides to summon Mahoraga. Mahoraga appears and instantly destroys the father spider demon with a single punch before it even has time to adapt. During this chaos, Tanjiro still gets blown away toward Rui's location, so the Rui fight mostly plays out the same. Tanjiro unlocks sun breathing with his broken sword, but still fails to kill Rui before Giyu arrives. Shinobu and Giyu show up like in the original timeline. This time, Giyu doesn't have to save Inosuke because Megumi helped earlier. Shinobu still kills the demon she originally killed and helps Zenitsu, and Giyu still protects Tanjiro from Shinobu when she tries to kill Nezuko. After that, we move into the Hashira meeting, which mostly happens the same way. Sanemi and Obanai still test Nezuko, but Giyu and Urokodaki vouch for Tanjiro, and the master allows Nezuko to live. Tanjiro is spared and continues his journey, and now Megumi officially becomes part of Tanjiro's group, instead of it just being Tanjiro, Zenitsu, and Inosuke. Now the team heads into the Mugen Train arc, with Megumi joining their squad. Now for the Mugen Train arc, everything mostly happens the same, but with Megumi there, Tanjiro, Inosuke, Zenitsu, and Megumi board the train after Rengoku defeats the speed demon. Everything with Enmu's dream trap still happens. They all get put to sleep and eventually break out of the dream, just like in the original timeline. Tanjiro and Inosuke go to defeat Lower Moon 1, Enmu, while Megumi mainly stays back helping protect the train with his Shikigami. Tanjiro still gets stabbed during the fight, and the train still derails, but they do successfully kill Lower Moon 1, so everything in that part of the arc happens basically the same. Then Upper Moon 3, Akaza, shows up. Megumi is still able to fight while Zenitsu is trapped under the train with Nezuko. The big difference here is that Megumi himself isn't strong enough yet to fight an Upper Moon directly. His mist breathing isn't fully mastered, and he's probably around Inosuke's level, maybe slightly lower than Tanjiro since Tanjiro has sun breathing. So while Rengoku and Akaza begin their battle, Megumi realizes he needs something stronger and summons his most powerful Shikigami, Mahoraga. Mahoraga immediately joins the fight and starts taking blows meant for Rengoku while adapting to Akaza's techniques, especially his compass needle blood demon art. As the fight continues, Mahoraga keeps adapting while Rengoku keeps Akaza busy. Mahoraga tanks many of Akaza's strongest attacks since it can regenerate and adapt anyway, which slowly gives it the advantage. Eventually, the fight drags on until sunrise approaches. Akaza realizes the sun is coming and tries to escape like in the original timeline, but Mahoraga has already adapted to his speed and combat style and stops him from running. Mahoraga throws Akaza into into the sunlight, which finally kills him. Because of this, Rengoku survives in this timeline, and Mahoraga becomes the reason an Upper Moon demon is defeated during the Mugen Train arc. And after that, we move on to the Upper Moon meeting. Begins with a major change in the hierarchy since Akaza has been killed. Under the command of Muzan Kibutsuji, the ranks shift to fill the empty position. Kokushibo remains Upper Moon 1, while Doma stays Upper Moon 2. With the third rank now vacant, Hantengu rises to become the new Upper Moon 3, and Gyoko moves up to Upper Moon 4. That leaves Gyutaro and Daki moving into the Upper Moon 5 position, while the final Upper Moon 6 rank remains empty until Muzan finds another demon strong enough to claim it. Now, one of the main focuses for the Upper Moons is not just eliminating Tanjiro, but also finding the person responsible for killing Akaza, because whoever summoned that power poses a major threat. However, Muzan probably doesn't have full information about Megumi, or the fact that Mahoraga was summoned, so even if he suspects something, he can't confirm it yet. Meanwhile, Rengoku returns alive and reports to the Hashira about what it was like fighting an Upper Moon and how dangerous Akaza was. Tanjiro continues his training and keeps improving, but this time, the core hasn't lost Rengoku, which changes the atmosphere a lot. And now we move into the Entertainment District arc, but this time, Megumi is there with them. Now for the Entertainment District arc, I'm going to skip most of the dialogue since Megumi is already there anyway. We know there are only 3 houses they have to investigate, so maybe one of them sits out, probably Megumi or Zenitsu, and they stay with Tengen while the others go undercover. But I want to get straight to the fight with Tanjiro versus Daki. Tanjiro fights Daki alone at first, just like in the original timeline. He runs out of breath, Nezuko comes in to save him, and most of that part still plays out the same. Meanwhile, Megumi, Tengen, Zenitsu, and Inosuke are dealing with the other side of the fight. When everything starts coming together, Tengen, Zenitsu, Inosuke, and Megumi all arrive. This time, things change a lot. Megumi summons multiple shadows using the 10 shadows technique, and the big difference here, Mahoraga. Instead of helping Tanjiro directly, the smarter move would be to have Zenitsu, Inosuke, and Tanjiro gang up on Daki, while Tengen and Mahoraga fight Gyutaro. Since Mahoraga can adapt and regenerate, he can tank a lot of Gyutaro's attacks and slowly adapt to his Blood Demon art, which gives Tengen way more breathing room in the fight. Megumi stays back, providing support with the rest of his shadows, occasionally jumping in to help Tanjiro, Zenitsu, and Inosuke when needed. Because of this, the fight goes much cleaner. Gyutaro has to deal with Mahoraga constantly adapting to his attacks, while also fighting Tengen, which puts him under massive pressure. Eventually, Tengen manages to kill Gyutaro, and since Daki is getting jumped by Tanjiro, Zenitsu, and Inosuke, one of them cuts off her head soon after. They are still poisoned, but Nezuko cures everyone, like in the original timeline. The big difference is that Tengen never has to fake his death or lose his arm, and none of them suffer the life-threatening injuries they did before, especially Inosuke. After that, we move into the Swordsmith Village arc, which Megumi probably doesn't go to since he doesn't need anything from the village. Zenitsu and Inosuke didn't go in the original timeline either, and Megumi barely even used his sword in the Entertainment District fight, so there's no reason for it to be broken. Tanjiro goes to the Swordsmith Village, and everything mostly plays out the same. He meets Mitsuri, Muichiro, and Genya, trains with the Yoriichi doll, and both Mitsuri and Muichiro awaken their Demon Slayer marks. They still defeat Upper Moon 5 Gyoko and Upper Moon 4 Hantengu. After that, everyone returns for the Hashira training arc, where Megumi actually tries to unlock the Demon Slayer mark. In my other timelines with characters like Sasuke or Gojo, they wouldn't care about the mark, but Megumi probably would because he tends to doubt himself and wants to become stronger. Then we reach the Infinity Castle arc, which begins when Ubuyashiki sacrifices himself in the explosion to corner Muzan, and Muzan pulls all of the Demon Slayers into the Infinity Castle. Now with that, I think Megumi would be traveling with Gyome and Muichiro at the beginning, because we did see Gyome and Muichiro moving together in the original timeline. Muichiro probably still thinks Megumi is weak anyway, so it doesn't really matter to him. When Muichiro gets separated and runs into Kokushibo, Megumi arrives there as well. The moment Megumi senses Kokushibo's presence, he freezes for a second because the pressure is insane, and while Muichiro is attacking, Kokushibo immediately cuts off Muichiro's arm, just like in the original timeline. Megumi snaps out of it and instantly summons Mahoraga. Now since Muichiro and Megumi both use mist breathing, they can actually bounce off each other really well in combat, while Mahoraga takes most of Kokushibo's hits. After a while, Mahoraga starts adapting to moon breathing and Kokushibo's Blood Demon art, slowly creating counters to his slashes and pushing Kokushibo closer to the brink until Genya arrives to help. Soon after that, Gyome and Sanemi show up, and Gyome tells Muichiro to rest because he just lost his arm. Muichiro doesn't want to, but he's forced to step back. With Mahoraga constantly adapting and taking hits, Gyome, the strongest Hashira, and Sanemi, the most offensive Hashira, are able to push forward and go for Kokushibo's head, using Mahoraga almost like a shield. Megumi also summons other Shikigami like Max Elephant, Nue, or the Divine Dogs to help protect Genya, and support the battlefield. Eventually, they manage to cut off Kokushibo's head, and even though he regenerates at first, he finally realizes his mistake about his brother and accepts death. Now for Doma. Because the Kokushibo fight ended earlier in this timeline, thanks to Mahoraga's help, everything else shifts earlier as well, and the fighters get split up. Sanemi ends up running into Upper Moon 2, right after Shinobu has already been badly injured. Sanemi arrives just in time to save her, but fighting Doma without poison is extremely difficult. Soon after, Gyome, Megumi, Genya, and Muichiro arrive, but Muichiro is barely able to fight after losing his arm, and Shinobu has crushed lungs, so they stay back while Gyome, Sanemi, Megumi, and Mahoraga fight Doma. Then Inosuke and Kanao arrive and help as well, so they basically overwhelm Upper Moon 2 together and defeat him. Since Akaza, Upper Moon 3, already died earlier, Giyu and Tanjiro never fight him and instead spend the Infinity Castle battle defeating other demons. Kaigaku vs Zenitsu still happens the same way, with Zenitsu winning using 7th form. Meanwhile, Nakime fights Yushiro, Mitsuri, and Obanai. They defeat her, and Yushiro takes control of the Infinity Castle. Muzan notices this, kills Nakime, and Yushiro sends everyone out of the castle for the final battle. This time, Muichiro and Shinobu are still alive, but Muichiro is heavily injured, and the healers force him to stay back since he's still bleeding badly from losing his arm. Shinobu also can't fight because of her crushed lungs and needs time to recover, although she likely survives since she knows medicine better than anyone. Now we reach the final battle against Muzan Kibutsuji. Mahoraga is constantly adapting to Muzan's attacks, while Muzan is getting weaker because Tamayo's drug is affecting him. Tanjiro still unlocks the 13th form of sun breathing with Obana during the massive clash. Mahoraga puts so much pressure on Muzan that he can't unleash his strongest attacks freely because Mahoraga would eventually adapt to them. With all the Hashira backing him up, Tanjiro uses the 13th form repeatedly and drags Muzan into the sunlight, finally killing him. Tanjiro still briefly becomes the Demon King, but they save him using the human serum, and everything returns to normal. In the end, Shinobu and Giyu end up together, and Mitsuri and Obanai end up together as well. I hope you guys really liked this timeline. Make sure to check out What If Sukuna Was in Demon Slayer, because that was one of my favorite ones to make, and also check out my second channel video, What If Jinwoo Was in JJK, which is one of my favorite videos I've ever made.